close it out. Now, this is the segment where we just talk about whether we are keeping it open, starting these guys just this week, or closing it out and benching them. We've got myself, Lawrence Jackson, Matthew Berry from an interrogation room. Unfortunately, Matthew was arrested for starting Bam Knight last week.
Well, you know what? I have 8 kids at home. Let's be clear. I have 8 kids at this house. It is the only week all my kids have off for vacation. It's my birthday week, by the way. It's my birthday tomorrow. No big deal.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, my friend. You're the only one who wished me happy birthday. It's fine. No, whatever, Jay. No. Lawrence is my only friend. It's fine. And anyway, so yeah, So to celebrate my birthday and to get the kids out of the cold, I took them all to Florida. So we're in a house in Florida. All 5 of my kids, and 2 of them, the longtime girlfriends of 2 of them, and the other one's got his best friend. And so I've literally got 8 kids. 2 of them are 24, but I have 8 kids in this house with my wife and I. So it's, trying to find a place to do, a podcast for an hour, a reasonably quiet podcast for an hour is not easy. And whatever, the truth of the matter is that the way to do it here is a closet. That I was going to try to reach back and, I don't know.
What are you doing? What are you trying to do?
There you go. There you can see, we have purses. Anyway,
I personally think the closet looks magnificent, and the acoustics are strong, and it's a fantastic hat. And on that note, let's pivot to Geno Smith, who was a no-brainer start in fantasy for so long. Incredible comeback season from Geno. First 5 weeks of the season was playing like the best quarterback in football. Hasn't been as pretty lately, Lawrence, for Geno. And now he gets a matchup which is rich on a narrative perspective, but perhaps not so much so fantasy-wise, because the Jets' defense is scary.
Yeah, the Jets' defense is scary. This is why I'm gonna keep it open, though. I'm gonna give Geno a little leeway here these past 2 weeks. It was a tough Kansas City team, even though they're not known for their defense. They lost because all them dudes went out there without their shirts off, led by DK. They trying to act all swole, but they wasn't worrying about winning the game. The week before that, they played San Francisco, another tough matchup, and they get one here. But at least this one is at home. And when he was at home the last time versus the Panthers, they did lose the game, and he did throw 2 picks, but he threw 3 touchdowns with it. So now at least getting them back home, the Jets' offense won't provide as much resistance. This is not Kansas City's offense. This is not San Francisco's offense they're going against. It is the great Mike White. It is him. It is Mike White, the GOAT. But still, he just not Patrick Mahomes just yet. He's thrown 40 passes in back-to-back games. So whatever the game script is, we know the Seahawks are going to throw the ball unless they're up 30, which they're not going to be versus this Jets team. So I'm going to give Geno another shot. He's still been a top 10 quarterback the past 4 weeks, despite the, quote-unquote bad playing. So I'm going to leave it open for Geno, baby.
Open or close, Matthew, on Geno?
Yeah, I'm keeping it closed. I'm closing it out, right? Again, we're at a bar. I don't know if you guys get this premise. You didn't, totally explain it, Jay. You sort of explained it, but, again, keep it open, close it out like you're at a bar like you would do with a check here. But I'm going to close it out. So to Lawrence's point, the one thing I will say is, to Lawrence's point, last week against Kansas City, DK Metcalf caught a touchdown pass, 1 foot, half of 1 foot was out of bounds. And so I think if he gets both feet in and that's a touchdown, maybe the narrative changes on him a little bit. But over the last 2 games, Geno Smith has been the 18th best quarterback in fantasy, right? He's had 1 touchdown pass in each of his last 2 games. Again, if DK had caught in that one, maybe it's a little bit different. But I think this offense really misses Tyler Lockett. I think we, for all the Marquise Goodwin talk, there's just a speed element and a trust element, and just Tyler Lockett's really good element that is missing from the Seahawks offense. Lawrence mentions the matchups the last 2 weeks that they've had without Tyler Lockett in terms of the Niners and the Chiefs, and I get it, but it's not like the Jets are anything to sneeze at. I mean, they've allowed multiple touchdown passes 1 time. They haven't allowed it since week 3, right? The last time they allowed multiple touchdown passes in a game was week 2 of the NFL season. So this is a game, and also I don't have a stat on this, guys, but I'll just say that I think the Jets, knowing they've got Mike White back, gives the entire team confidence. Like I feel like there's a little bit of like, oh man, Zach, we even if we stop them on the defensive side, like it doesn't matter. Like, but I think Mike White, as crazy as this is, I think Mike White, the fact that the Dolphins lost and the fact that Mike White is returning, the Jets are like, you know what? We're still alive. We got a shot. We got a real shot this week. And everyone's talking about Geno Smith against his former team. How about Mike White leading the charge here to the playoffs? Joining the likes of Chad Pennington in terms of and Mark Sanchez in terms of all-time Jets greats.
Yeah, legends. I would be shocked if Geno doesn't throw at least one pick in this game because he loves to throw it up for grabs. He makes a ton of big plays, but also a lot of turnover-worthy plays. And I think between Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, the safeties, they will get at least one pick in this game. Matthew, let's go.
He's going to make my hate list this week, just so you know.
That's sad.
So you saying you a hater?
Maybe this week in terms of his fantasy matchup.
Matthew's
what's the word on Tyler Lockett anyways? He came back to practice, didn't he?
I think it's trending towards he might give it a go, but it's uncertain at this point.
It is uncertain at the moment, and certainly if Lockett is active, you'd raise him up a little bit, but it's still the Jets. It's still a tough matchup. I think Geno Smith was for the longest time like a locked-in QB1. I'm at QB 17 this week, so could he get up to like QB 13 or 14 if Lockett's back? Yeah, sure, but he's still a QB 2. He's still somebody who I would lower expectations for this week.
Okay. People wrote off Geno Smith, and now Matthew is writing back. I see how it goes.
All right. That's exactly right.
Matthew, let's talk about Devin Singletary, who had a lot of meh weeks in a row, and then went off against the Bears, though he didn't get a ton of volume. Keeping it open or closing it out on Singletary?
I'm closing it out on Singletary. Again, it's just so hard to trust the volume. It's hard to trust the production. To your point, he's had, prior to last week, he had under 55 rushing yards in 3 straight games. He's had single-digit fantasy points in 4 of the last 5. And now he's got to face the Bengals. Cincinnati is the 4th best run defense in the NFL since week 13. And so, you just see it there on your screen, 11.1, 5.3, 10, 20.5. I don't know, man. Look, if there's something to hang your hat on, it's the fact that the over-under in this game is really high, and we expect a lot of points to be scored, and they do sometimes use Singletary in the passing game. So there's always a chance that he catches a swing pass and gets in. There's always a chance he falls in the end zone. They sort of mix it up in terms of who they use at the goal line. But yeah, I'm closing it out. It's week 17. It is the fantasy finals in almost every league. I'm not getting cute here. And to me, Devin Singletary, who's had one good game in the last month, it's too cute for me against a very good Bengals defense.
Where you at, Lawrence?
Yeah, so one of Devin Singletary, you mentioned the over-under, Matthew, which is high in this game, 49.5, I believe it is right now. One of Devin Singletary or James Cook is going to score a touchdown. We just don't know which one it's going to be. But here's a question for you. Do you feel like Devin Singletary is better than one of Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, or Ramondre Stevenson? No, right?
No.
Those were the Bengals' last 3 opponents who were all held under 45 rushing yards. So even if you take out, the the questionable workload for the Bills running backs, they're not giving up anything to good running backs. So I don't see them giving it up, to Bills running backs who are not as good of players as these other running backs. So I'm going to keep this close too.
Yep, sneaky good and rising defense in Cincinnati. Lawrence, what do you think of J.K. Dobbins against the Steelers, trending towards no Lamar Jackson, even though we don't really say that out loud because the game is on Sunday Night Football on NBC. Definitely tune in to watch Kenny Pickett against Tyler Huntley. But where are you at with J.K. Dobbins, who's had inconsistent usage?
Yeah, so this one, again, it's tough because he didn't get the yards in week 16 that he's gotten the previous. There you go, you see it right there, 120 plus yards rushing his first 2 games back. Didn't quite get that in week 16, and we talked about this last week, him needing that touchdown, and I kept it open, and then we got this because of the rest of this list that we have. I feel like I have to keep it open just based on the fact that we know what type of game this is going to be. We don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to be back. It's going to be just like any other Ravens game, a run-oriented game, and you just banking on the touchdown. He's a more expensive, a more rich, a better version of like Jamal Williams at this point right now. Same level, kind of like Zeke right now. You hoping for that touchdown that he's gonna get. So I'll keep it open because he's the lead back, but I'm not like buying everybody's shots. I'm just gonna keep the shots to myself.
Okay, what are you doing with Dobbins, Matthew?
I'm closing it out here as well. The fact of the matter is this is a brutal matchup, right? The Steelers allow the ninth fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. They're the 11th best run defense over the last month. We just saw them shut down Josh Jacobs. It's also, by the way, the 4th best scoring defense over the last 4 weeks as well. It's hard to score against them. They're actually the number 1 pass defense. They've been really, really good defensively, and this is a game in which the Steelers desperately need. Not that the Ravens aren't going to play tough. They will. They always do. This is always a matchup. Doesn't matter the records. This is one of those literally stereotypical, throw out the records. These two teams hate each other, blah, blah, blah. That's actually true with the Ravens and the Steelers. It doesn't matter what the records are. These two teams will play each other really tough. But I think it's hard to feel good about J.K. Dobbins. Lawrence mentioned the fact no passing game usage, right? And so he really needs rushing. He needs a touchdown to sort of pay off, because he's not going to get passing game usage. And honestly, he's going to get about 13 touches in a game. I mean, that's basically, since he's returned, he's averaging 13.3 carries a game. So can he get to 100 yards on 13.3 carries and a touchdown? Maybe. Out of his last 5 games played, he's had 0 receptions in 4 of them. And it's worth noting that 3 of the last 4 starting running backs against the Steelers had 9 or fewer fantasy points here. So it feels like it's one of the lowest over-unders on the slate. I think points are going to be hard to come by in this game, period. And so with J.K. Dobbins, it really is how lucky do you feel? Do you think he falls into the end zone? Because if he doesn't score in this game, you're looking at 6 or 7 points. I don't think I would take the under on 120. I don't think his prop line has come out yet on BetMGM, but whatever that number is, I'd take the under.
Yeah, I feel like this is a game we need to get Willis McGahee into somehow. Let's go to Tampa Bay. Matthew, open or close on Rachaad White, who is in a backfield that's now trending towards Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm also closing it out here. It's week 17. I am not getting cute. All these guys are desperation plays. All these guys are guys that, if I'm truly forced to, but if I have a better option, if I have a pivot to somebody that's a little bit more viable, then close it out on Rachaad White. So under 12 or fewer touches now in back-to-back games, to your point, right? They are trending more toward Leonard Fournette. If you watch that game against Arizona, and contractually I was obligated to, if you watch that game against Arizona, the Tampa Bay offense, such as it was, moved a lot better with Leonard Fournette out there. He hasn't been used in the receiving game. That's the other thing. That was always the calling card for Rachaad White earlier this year. He's a better pass catcher. They really trust him in pass pro. They're using him in the passing game. We know Tom Brady likes to dump off. Well, he's now had under 25 receiving yards in 3 straight games. Fournette has had over 30 in 4 straight. They're using Fournette more, honestly, like they did last year. They're using Fournette not only as the pass-catching running back, but also as the early down back. They're just Fournette, I think, getting healthier, and they're leaning on him as they get into crunch time here. It's not a great matchup with the Panthers, as Carolina is allowing under 50 yards from scrimmage to starting running backs in 3 straight games. And so, they shut down Detroit's run game, their 3-headed monster last week as well. It's a top 3 run defense over the last 4 weeks. I'm closing it on Rachaad White.
Okay, let's go rapid fire, Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it quick. I'm closing it, man. We talked about it last week, fantasy playoff Lenny, and he's here. He's here now. 29 touches, 162 yards. He's the guy for the playoffs, closing that.
All right, open or close, Lawrence, on Michael Pittman, who has Nick Foles throwing him the ball in the Meadowlands.
I'm closing this because, the Giants' secondary is banged up. But did you see those people? He got sacked 7 times. Yeah. And if he wasn't getting sacked, he was throwing it right to the defense. The Giants' pass rush is probably just as ferocious, or they have been lately. They've had at least 3 sacks in 3 straight games. So I'm closing on Michael Pittman.
Yep. Matthew, I assume close on Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to close it out. He's my wide receiver 27 this week. The volume's been there, at least 7 targets in 5 of the last 6. The problem is he's not scoring touchdowns. He's had 1 touchdown since week 1. He's had fewer than 8 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3. Nick Foles looks awful. Like you're sort of like, how could this guy be 3rd string on the Colts? Oh, that's how. And I get it. The Giants secondary is a little bit beat up, but this game is in New York, or in New Jersey, I should say. The Giants are the home team in this one. Could be cold weather as well. Unfortunately, as much as I love Michael Pittman, he's a very risky wide receiver 3. So if I have better options, I'm looking elsewhere. I'm closing it out.
Okay, was one of those places you're looking elsewhere Brandon Ayuk, Matthew?
Yeah, I think I thought Ayuk looked pretty good last week, right? With his 81 receiving yards. It's a nice matchup with Las Vegas. They allow the 6th highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers. No Deebo Samuel. And give Brock Purdy credit. Brock Purdy is looking like a viable quarterback. Now, you see it there on your screen, that week 15 again, the game with the Seahawks, just 2 for 19. And week 14, obviously 2 for 56. He did score the touchdown there. Yes, look, under 5 targets in 2 of his last 3. But I do think they want Purdy to get more and more comfortable. The Raiders are going to have to pay attention to George Kittle after the last 2 weeks. So, look, I think he's a viable wide receiver 4. You'd have to be pretty far down to get it. But, if Ayuk is somebody that you would normally start, I'm going to keep it open. He's wide receiver 33. You know what I mean? All this is relative because it all depends on sort of what your team is. Again, Pittman's wide receiver 27, but that's lower than I've normally had him this year. Ayuk's wide receiver 33, which is, I think, the highest I've had him in the Brock Purdy era. So, again, it's all contextual. Depends on what else you have and how deep you are. But if you would normally consider starting Brandon Ayuk, I feel good about him this week.
How do you feel about Brandon Ayuk?
Well, just like you're saying it being relative, that I'll give you an example. It's relative to me. I benched him for Marquise Goodwin last week, and you see where that got me. I will not be making that same mistake this week unless Tyler Lockett comes back. So I'm going to keep this open. He finally showed some type of signs of life with Brock Purdy when it looked like there could be none. So I'll keep it open.
Okay, last 2 names on the list, Lawrence, Gabe Davis and Allen Lazard. Open or shut on these guys?
Gabe Davis is wide receiver 34 this year. Close. Allen Lazard, I'm going to keep it open.
Yep. Uncertainty around Christian Watson's status for that game against Minnesota, which I think will impact Lazard, obviously, who had 11 targets with Watson missing the second half. But, Matthew, what are you doing with Davis and Lazard?
I'm keeping both open. With Davis, look, he finally scored a touchdown last week. We talked about it this game on Monday night. One of the highest, if not the highest over-under on the slate. We expect a ton of points to be scored. We don't think they're going to be able to run against Cincinnati. They're going to have to throw to keep up with them. Cincinnati 25th in pass defense since week 13. So I'm actually, again, with Gabe Davis, he's West Coast Mike Williams. You're either always starting him or always benching him, and certainly signs of life from him last week. 6 targets or more in 3 of the last 4 for Gabriel Davis. As for Allen Lazard, he got double-digit targets last week. Minnesota is somebody that you can throw on. They allow the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. They're one of 2 teams to give up over 3,000 receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. You mentioned Christian Watson. We'll see if he's going to play. He may not play in this game, or if he may be limited as well. Aaron Rodgers, believe it or not, he always kills Minnesota. He's going to make my love list this week. I do think Rodgers has a big game against Minnesota this week, who's the 2nd worst pass defense over the last 4 weeks. I'm keeping it open on Allen Lazard, my wide receiver 26 this week.
Okay, we're going to go to break. When we come back, what's on tap? We'll break down Cowboys, Titans, Bears, Lions, and showdown between the Panthers and the Buccaneers.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.